Hi, I'm meteorologist Ted Keller. As I said this morning, I wanted to do a heads up video for the Ozarks, mostly southwest Missouri and mostly the northern and northeastern, I would say, part of the Ozarks. As you can see in the outlook there, let's dive into the details. The Storm Prediction Center has put a lot of the Ozarks from Springfield north mostly in a slight risk for severe weather. That's the level 2 out of 5 possible risk areas. And they have played with this boundary a little bit since the morning update. In the morning update, it was shaped more like this. And now they expanded it southwest along and down into south central and southeastern Kansas and expanded it eastward a little bit. They did the exact same thing with the tornado forecast. In fact, it would be argued that the tornado forecast was adjusted and then the slight risk was adjusted because of that. So it kind of worked the other way. So this is the tornado outlook, so it's bigger. And it does include initiation of storms out here in eastern Kansas, some of which could move into the Ozarks. And then later on tonight, it needs to be emphasized that this is an overnight event for many of you. Thunderstorms that form in this area will slide southeast. So there'll be some evening threats, especially maybe up in this area. It might even be an isolated early evening storm that forms here. Some of the models are indicating that. That doesn't look real likely, but it does look like this area here up along I-49 in the mid part of the evening, and then later on tonight, other storms that form will slide southeast. If we look at the internal products here, actually they're not really internal for SPC. Anybody can look at these. They do have, and let me just explain what I put on here. These are the 24-hour tornado probabilities. And so on this output, they actually have a 2% or a 5% chance in this brown here, a little bit higher than what they indicated. They just put a 2% risk down. That was the green I showed you. And then these little shaded areas here are basically updrafts that are rotating, not guarantees of tornadoes, but it kind of shows you where the thunderstorms are possible. And note that they're clustered quite a bit in this leg here. And this is the overnight activity, I believe, on tonight, so Sunday night into Monday morning. So just keep that in mind when you're trying to look at this. And they did adjust the 12Z or the 7 a.m. NATOcast to put the bullseye of 3% again up right around Lake of the Ozarks, north of Lebanon, northwest of Rolla. And again, I would perceive that to be an overnight threat, not necessarily an evening threat. Keep an eye on it, of course, but I think that's what the spirit of that. Remember, a lot of these forecasts are made at most for 24 hours. When they issue the one in the morning, Storm Prediction Center, they mean for it to go 24 hours to 7 a.m. the next morning. And then when they update it like they have here within the last hour or so, they still mean till 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, even though it's not quite 24 hours anymore. And of course, we're sensitized to hail, so let me show you that parameter real quick. So northwest of Springfield, 15% chance of a 1-inch hailstorm or hailstone or larger in that yellow area. So that would include Nevada, Bolivar. It would be up to around the Clinton area. It would include Warsaw and those areas. And then this hatched area just means they're trying to assess intensity. So they do have about a 32% chance here of up to a 2-inch hailstone in this area here. That is not expected to persist very much into the evening hours. Like I was telling you, these thunderstorms will come in later. Not so much hail producers, wind, and maybe isolated tornado producers. Let me take a look at the satellite loop here today. I think this is fascinating. But you can see the bubbling up of these morning thunderstorms right here, and they're producing effectively this line, outflow boundary that meteorologists love to talk about. That's this right here, and you'll notice that the cumulus clouds, that's this right here, stops right here because there's very definitely a boundary between unstable air and not so unstable air. And when I just go ahead and show you this here, this is Cape, and I'm recording this about noon. This might be the 11 a.m. data, 12, I'm not quite sure. Doesn't matter. There's instability out ahead of these storms, so those need to be watched off to the east of Springfield for the next couple hours or so, and then they'll move away. And then this boundary extends, and you can see it in the Cape Valley. You see the gradient right here. So where this ends up, and as it moves north today, is where I'll set up my chase, probably in that area. And you should know that a thunderstorm that latches along that boundary will probably follow it. To a pretty close approximation. That may mean a tornado producer out here somewhere. Will that last into the Ozarks? Could. It could have the legs to do that. And then a lot of that overnight convection is going to be either along or north of this boundary as it moves this way. So if it's north of the boundary, the tornado threat goes down a little bit. So it really depends on where that thing sets up. So it's an interesting forecast. I'll show you the last things we'll do here. And again, grain of salt on these because these are outputs of one run of this radar, simulated radar at 8 p.m. There's only one cell here along I-49. Nothing forming out here yet, although other runs had it a little more vigorous earlier. So keep that in mind. And then by midnight, we have thunderstorms that are still forming out here. And these are the storms that might be north of that boundary, although if any of those can take a foothold along it, this one or this one, they have a better chance of being tornadic.